the New England Air Museum, FlightSimCon 2016, and AirDailyX.net. I am joined by Alex Goff and Misha Alex. Am I saying it right? Do I always get it wrong? Oh my gosh.
That's almost right.
Almost right. And
enough.
You guys just did a very comprehensive seminar on flight simulation development. Give us just a few bullet points on what was discussed in there.
Yeah, so I'll take this. So we talked about project management in general, and then also flight simulation specific project management, how to pick a project, how to pick an appropriately sized and located project for your skill level or the skill level you're looking to get to, and just general tips for development, helping out both new and old developers with some of the tips and techniques we've learned over our 5 years or so of working.
Taking everything that you guys discussed in today's seminar, give us the top 3 bullet points that anyone who couldn't be in there, I know I'm putting you on the hot spot, anyone that couldn't be in there, what would you say are the top 3 bullet points, just like off the top of your head, that everyone should follow in flight simulation development?
Number 1, avoid feature creep. You don't want to have more you don't want to be perpetually putting features in, and you have to draw the line somewhere. Number 2 would be resources. You really want to have good resources for every single project, otherwise you're just pretty much making it harder for yourself. Either just pick a project and make sure you have good resources. If you don't, just pick another one. There's over 24,000 airports in the world. I'm sure there's another one you can pick that's got better resources. And
number 3, don't bite off more than you can chew. So the learning curve is difficult enough as it is, very, very steep. So starting with your nearest international airport may not be the most prudent decision in terms of project time. You may end up instead finding yourself spending more time learning how to do something that you need to know for an international rather than finishing your project. It could drag on for years if you start too steep up the slope. So little bites at first.
All right, now let's stick with you for a little bit, Alex, because you just released Bar Harbor.
Yes, Bar
I'm
Harbor
in love with it. It's an incredible, number 1, some way, somehow, you've managed to pick the one location on the East Coast that has that Pacific Northwest feel.
Yeah, so it's an area that I personally enjoy. I love the location. I visited twice, and it's an absolute joy. But yeah, so it's kind of hard. I'm from the East Coast, so you sort of have to think, what's interesting on the East Coast? Something that has interesting terrain that can capture people like the West Coast and the Rocky Mountains, the Pacific Northwest. And so I really do think that coastal Maine is probably the closest thing we have to that. It's got the rocky shorelines, mountains, ocean, all in one place, similar to the Pacific Northwest. And so I think it captures that same feel in a great way.
It does, and not only did you include the airport itself, but you gave it a wide enough sort of girth around that literally, because when I first got it, I was on my way to FlightSimCon by the time Ed got it to me, and I was like, I really got to just check this out before I go. And before I knew it, 3 hours had passed. It was fun enough to just take a small, slow airplane or helicopter and just flying around the area, I thought was just absolutely perfect.
Definitely. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I was just going to say, when I was developing it, one of the things that Bar Harbor Airport is predominantly used for is scenic flights. So in addition to the private jet traffic in the summer, scenic flights are a huge thing, and there's all sorts of ones around Acadia National Park, and so I really wanted to add that so that people could sort of experience that, be able to take these scenic loops around where you go low and slow by the shore, go inland, check out lighthouses, and really be able to get that exploration and have a nice scenic flight in addition to the airport.
How's the feedback been on that since it's been out?
It's been pretty good. I've got a lot of good response. A lot of people asking, will there be more in the Northeast? So
that was my next question.
I'm very happy to hear that. So I guess I don't see any reason why I shouldn't reveal, but so I'm continuing to work in the Northeast, so I'm planning on doing a small release, a smaller, quicker project, hopefully in the more budget range. So Block Island, Rhode Island is where I will be headed next.
Wow.
So it's an airport that I've always wanted to do. I've got a mental list of airports I've always wanted, and that one was on there. So kind of was looking at it one day and decided make the jump. It's another beautiful location. It's got huge sandy bluffs, beautiful coastline, wind turbines spinning off the shore, and it's another really great vacation destination that you can sort of have some good short hops to it. So that's where I'll be continuing to work from now.
Yeah, I think once Tim and Ken branched into the P&W, I think that just opened up the entire planet for, or PNG. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
thank you, PNG. I always get those two like mixed up.
One letter.
Yeah,
One important letter.
Once they open up the PNG, everything just opened up for everybody.
Yeah.
Especially like Jared, and I mean, it's just been incredible.
Definitely. They opened the floodgates, because before, I mean, I think we were more reserved and not necessarily well set up to kind of figure out, all right, is it easy to do things out here? Is it going to look good? Is it going to, 'cause I mean, in the regions, you're always backed by these beautiful regions that flow very easily into the airport. There's not a sharp transition back to default, which is always sort of what the ideology behind Orbx is having a great flight experience start to end. And so I think Tim and Ken definitely broke that barrier and showed that you can do this outside of our familiar regions and be successful and make something great still. So I think that inspired a lot of us. It inspired, I mean, Jared started doing it, and I started doing it sort of with Meigs, but then with Bar Harbor as well. So,
well, congratulations on another very successful release.
Thank you.
You guys are kicking butt. All right, now there are images scrolling around on the screen over here.
There are images scrolling on the screen.
What the heck is going on that screen?
All right, so that screen is showing some shots of this project that I just announced. That is Santa Barbara Airport in Southern California. And I've been developing this since about February, when I was actually in California to take photos of that particular airport with DeAndre. It's been going pretty well, not as fast as I would have hoped for it to go. Take my own advice from the talk, as I said. But I'm really, really happy with how it's coming together. And it's really sort of odd to be making an airport that I've actually visited in real life, because it's sort of like deja vu. I'm starting to feel it, if you know what I mean. I've never been to any of the airports I've developed except this one.
Tell us a little bit about the development process with Santa Barbara. Tell us about, obviously I was there.
Yeah.
We went around, and when this shows up on the website, they'll see the video of us kind of flying around. But tell us about the overall experience of going around an airport, getting photography. How does that play in terms of the development process? Do you wish you could do that with every airport, or do you wish that's only really necessary with certain places?
I mean, it would really be ideal to be able to do it for every airport, because as I said in my talk, it is it's good when you have source photography, like someone else has taken it and you've got really good source photography. It's even better if you're the one that took them, because then you have a spatial awareness of what the place actually looks like, and so you're able to make it even more accurately than usual.
Now, on a sense of scale, how do you compare this to everything else you've ever done?
This is pretty absolutely massive compared to everything else I've ever done. I mean, the terminal alone is just unlike anything I've ever done. The terminal is probably one of my proudest creations ever. The largest terminal I've ever done, was, I'd say Lake Tahoe was the largest, but in terms of complexity, Sonoma County was the largest. This terminal took about 4 weeks to make alone.
Wow.
When you compare it to the other buildings that I've made so far, which take maybe about 1 or 2 days each, that terminal was really a labor of love. And, not even speaking about the surrounding area, I've actually gotten a little bit of help for the surrounding area from one of my mates. So, having some of the origin part out of the way is kind of a relief. But that entire surrounding area is about 1,500 square kilometers. And it also includes Santa Ynez. So I am hoping to include that in the first release of the airport. If not, then I will definitely try and get it in a service pack. But it's just over the mountains of Santa Barbara. It's a very charming little airport near this town called Solvang, and it should be a nice flight over the mountains. On top of that, we also have oil rigs off the shore of Santa Barbara where you can take your helicopters, and on top of that, we also have some bush strips. I've included all of the islands of the national park off the shore of Santa Barbara, and on those we'll have, there are about 3 bush strips that I've found so far on those. So
now,
it's kind of like a Southern California experience pack, if you will.
It really is. It really is. And in several of my recent live streams, I kept saying, you know, I learned how to do a little bit of water masking.
That's right.
And that's these islands here, the Channel Islands off
That's
the coast
right.
of Southern California, that I got to kind of learn. There's a shot of one, I think, right there.
Yep.
And I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Now, you said this isn't going as fast as you hoped it would.
Yep.
But you've also been working on another project as
Indeed.
well, which is Dubrovnik.
Indeed. Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
All right, so Dubrovnik was a really exciting project for me to be able to work on because it's like my background is from Eastern Europe, and I've been there a lot of times in my life, and you know I've sort of grown to get familiar with the architecture and the environment there, and so working with Dubrovnik is really sort of unreal because it's the way it's come together. It's kind of like, you know, it sort of reminds me of that Eastern European area. So it's nice to work on something that I'm really, really familiar with because it's, you know, I have never been to America up until this year, and so I am not too familiar with, you know, and that's why it's really cool to come to America because since I got familiar with all the architecture from doing all these American airports, now coming here and seeing it in real life is, you know.
And how do you find it?
Surreal.
How it's surreal, and how accurate is the real thing? Usually, we always say how accurate is the airport to the real thing. How accurate are you finding the real thing to your creations?
I have never been to Dubrovnik itself.
Yeah.
I'd hope to go soon, but I've never been there myself. But you know, architecture doesn't really vary much around that area. So you know, you got architecture that you see. Typically would be orange roofed 3-story houses made by the family that lives in it
Right.
for generations and all that, and that is something which you find in pretty much every house in Dubrovnik. They all look like that.
Well, we do get these early renders now. Usually, when we get a render from Orbx from you guys, release is like within a month.
Yeah.
Santa Barbara probably a little bit further out.
Yeah,
than that.
Santa Barbara's probably a little bit further out than that. Hopefully, you know, I'd like to work on it as much as possible, full speed ahead, once I get back to Australia. But you know, it will still take some time. But I'm really excited about it.
Well, I was there when you were there, and it's funny because we were discovering it together for the first time, and just looking at the screenshots, I mean, it looks like real life. I mean, you really have gone like the full mile, and I mean, needless to say,
stairs.
oh, it's just, yeah, I know. I mean, you and I have stories that we literally could tell the stuff that we've seen and have done up here, but ultimately, I mean, it is an absolute masterpiece, and without a doubt, is your this is your what's your magnum opus. I don't want to steal that word, but I mean, ultimately, this really is the scenery that you'd probably agree this is define Misha Alex as a developer.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
I like to think so. Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for coming out to the convention, and look forward to hanging out with you guys a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks. At the New England. That's okay, because all this crap just gets edited out. From the New England. Huh? No, it's live up there. Oh, they're seeing all the outtakes at the top. It's the real camera. All that gets edited out.